Hey guys, welcome back. You will never want store-bought donuts after you try this homemade recipe. Donuts are actually very simple to make at home. And what's more, you can glaze it with your favorite flavors. Endless flavors are possible. You will probably end up making a second or a third batch. So let's get cooking. We start off first by making the yeast mixture. In warm water, add a couple of teaspoons of sugar and then a teaspoon of instant yeast. Now the yeast reacts with the warm milk and with sugar, and if you stir it together and leave it for a good 12 to 15 minutes, it will almost double up in size, and that will help in the donut to become light and fluffy. So mix it all together and keep it aside. In the meantime, we start with the donut mixture with all the dry ingredients. First goes in the all-purpose flour or the plain flour, a tiny quantity of salt. Salt always works well in desserts. A tiny quantity is really magical. A couple of teaspoons of sugar, and for spice I like to use nutmeg powder. Nutmeg powder gives a very nice flavor and also gives a very nice aroma to the donuts. Now gently mix all the dry ingredients into a bowl with a spatula, just to ensure that the spice is mixed together with the flour. It doesn't stick on to just one part of the flour, but it is evenly spread out into the mixture. Then goes in our milk and yeast mixture. Now this will help the dough to bind together. With the spatula, you start mixing it together, it becomes into a nice soft dough. Add a tiny quantity of oil. Oil makes it also soft. Mix it together with the spatula. What you would get is initially a very sticky kind of a dough, but as you keep on mixing it together, it really clumps together and comes together as a dough. Take off the spatula and then finally use your hands, your fingers, to gently massage the dough till you get almost like a smooth kind of a dough. It takes a little while, but try and get the nice smooth kind of a feel to it. Now oil your bowl with a little bit of vegetable oil and also apply that onto the dough ball. Mix it together, and this will be kept for a good 1.5 hours to rest. Cover it with a cling film or a plastic wrap and let it rest into a warm part of the area, and within 1.5 hours it will actually rise to almost double its size. So it aerates quite well, and this is how you actually get a nice light and a fluffy donut. That is all set to be kept aside, and here after an hour and a half it is risen quite well. Now this is going to be gently deflated, so lightly knock back the dough, not firmly but in a very gentle manner. Lightly deflate the dough. Dust some plain flour on your work table and add your donut dough on top of that. Again, sprinkle a tiny quantity of flour. You don't need to put too much flour, just enough flour so that it becomes like a non-stick. Your rolling pin does not stick, and it's easy for you to roll out the dough on your work surface. Roll out the dough into approximately 3/4 thick centimeter and then cut it with a ring mold. I don't have a donut cutter, so I'm going to teach you a small trick. I've got a ring mold, a steel ring mold. I cut the rounds or the disc, and then what I do is I have a cap from a bottle, basically a metal cap, and I make small little discs in the center, cut them into rounds in the center, and there you see it, you get into a very nice, like a donut kind of a shape. So if you don't have a donut cutter, this is a small little trick you can use at home. Now transfer all the rings of donut onto a greaseproof paper and let that rest for a good 20 minutes. It will rise further. You don't need to cover it at this stage, just leave them open to rest, and all the excess dough which you have is then rolled back together and again cut and reused, so nothing of the dough is wasted. Now the one more trick I like to use is actually I cut the butter paper into squares, so each donut has his own base of butter paper. Now this is a very handy trick because when you actually want to fry it, you don't really have to lift and pull it out from the butter paper. Now once you lift up the donut, it begins to lose shape. So what you do is you cut it into small squares. So when you want to fry it, you take each single butter paper along with the donut next to the fryer and then just transfer it into the oil. In that way you will never lose the shape of the donuts. You heat up some oil to approximately 160 degrees centigrade or 330 degree Fahrenheit and gently fry the donuts. And here, as you can see, I bring the butter paper as close as possible to the oil so the shapes are retained quite well. Now the oil has to be at a low temperature. Never fry your donuts at a very high temperature because the outside will get brown and the inside will be raw. So always at a medium or a low temperature. And for me, 160 degrees centigrade is the perfect temperature to fry the donuts. Now flip the donuts over and cook it on both sides till you get donuts which are golden brown in color. Once the donuts are ready, you drain them and put them onto a wire rack for the excess oil to ooze out. You don't want the donuts to be very oily, so keep it on a wire rack for approximately 3 to 4 minutes just to settle down, and also the excess oil oozes out from the wire rack. Now there are various toppings you can have for donuts. The classics are a little bit melted chocolate, but I'm going to use a cinnamon flavored sugar. You can actually flavor your sugar with anything else. You can get hazelnut powder, you can get cacao powder, you can use matcha powder, you can get any flavoring which you want. But for me, I'm going to use just cinnamon and castor sugar. I'm going to mix it all together, but a generous quantity of cinnamon, because cinnamon, when you add it into the warm donuts, it gives a very nice aroma and also gives a very nice flavor. So mix the cinnamon and the sugar together. Now once that is done, I will then take my drained donuts and then dust them in the cinnamon sugar. And I like to dust it on both sides. A lot of people do on just one side and serve it to the guest, but I like to have my donuts literally dipped into sugar on both sides. So when you get it, you get a very nice feeling of the crispy sugar and the cinnamon as a flavor. So there we are. I've got them almost ready, and it's now time to put them onto a tray. So this is my simple egg-free homemade donuts. I hope you enjoyed. Do make it at home and leave your comments in the section below.